Your words came true. I feel so guilty. Listen carefully, because what I am about to tell you may change the way you look at everything that happened recently. Something happened last night that you were never supposed to understand this quickly, yet somehow the pieces are beginning to fall into place. You may have noticed a strange feeling in your heart, a sudden thought that would not leave you alone, or a quiet moment when everything seemed unusually still. Do not dismiss that feeling. Don't skip, because this is where the story begins, and something huge is waiting for you. There are moments in life when an ordinary night becomes the doorway to an extraordinary realization, and last night carried one of those moments. You thought certain words were only words. You thought they would fade with time. But now, something has happened that makes those words feel completely different. Stay till the end, because the most important part has not happened yet. There is a reason your heart feels unsettled, and there is a reason you suddenly remembered something you had almost forgotten. You may have believed that you were simply overthinking, but what if that feeling was pointing you towards something you needed to see? What if the situation you have been trying to understand has been quietly changing behind the scenes? Last night was not about fear. It was about realization. It was about seeing a truth from a completely different angle. And before you decide that this is just another coincidence, listen to what happened next. There is a moment I want you to remember, because everything began with something so small that almost anyone would have ignored it. The night became unusually quiet, and for a brief moment, your mind returned to a sentence you once heard. You may remember the exact tone, the exact feeling, perhaps even the place where those words were spoken. At the time, you did not understand their importance. You may even have brushed them aside because they sounded impossible. Yet last night, those words came back with a force you could not explain. Don't skip now, because this is where the connection becomes impossible to ignore. Something huge is waiting for you in the details. The strange part is that the words did not return randomly. They appeared at the exact moment when you were thinking about the situation that has been weighing on you. It was as if your memory had been waiting for the right moment to reveal what you were not ready to recognize before. And suddenly, you felt that uncomfortable realization: what if those words were true? What if the person who said them had seen something that you could not see at the time? What if your entire understanding of that situation was incomplete? You may have spent days trying to move forward, convincing yourself that everything was finished, settled, or understood. But last night challenged that belief. Something shifted inside you. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough for you to realize that the story may not be over. Then came the part that made your heart pause, because something happened that seemed almost perfectly connected to those words. You were not searching for an answer, yet an answer appeared in front of you. You were not trying to remember the past, yet the past suddenly returned to your thoughts. You were not expecting anything unusual, yet the night gave you a moment you cannot easily explain. Stay till the end. Don't skip, because there is a deeper reason this matters. Sometimes the most powerful turning points do not arrive with a loud announcement. They arrive quietly, through a conversation, a memory, an unexpected message, a familiar name, or even a thought that appears at exactly the right time. And when that happens, you are left wondering whether life is trying to show you something. Last night, you experienced that kind of moment. You may have felt confused because part of you wanted to believe it was meaningless, while another part of you knew you could not simply ignore it. That inner conflict is important. It means something inside you is finally asking the question you avoided before: what if I misunderstood everything? What if the thing I thought was an ending was actually a turning point? What if the silence you experienced was not rejection, but preparation for something you were not yet ready to understand? Don't rush past this moment. Something huge is waiting for you, and it begins with one simple realization. Sometimes the truth becomes visible only after we stop forcing ourselves to look away, but there was another layer, and this is where the guilt began to appear. You started thinking about the words that were spoken before everything changed, and suddenly you wondered whether you had judged someone too quickly. Maybe you believed their warning was unnecessary. Maybe you thought their concern was exaggerated. Maybe you simply did not want to hear it because accepting it would have forced you to make a difficult decision. Whatever the reason, those words stayed somewhere in your memory. Last night, they returned. And this time, they sounded different. They carried a weight they did not have before. Don't skip, because this is not just about what happened last night. It is about why you are feeling what you are feeling right now. That guilty feeling may not mean you did something terrible. Sometimes guilt simply means we have finally understood something that we were unable to understand before. You may be realizing that someone was trying to tell you something, protect your peace, or prepare you for a truth you were not ready to accept. And now you are looking backward with the knowledge you have today. That can be painful. You may wish you had listened sooner. You may wish you had asked another question, waited another day, or trusted your instincts a little more. But listen carefully, do not allow regret to become the only thing you see. There is still a reason this realization has arrived now. Something unexpected happened after that realization, and it changed the emotional direction of the entire night. Instead of feeling only regret, you began to notice something else: clarity. The pieces that once seemed disconnected suddenly started forming a pattern. A conversation from the past. A decision you made. A moment you ignored. A feeling you could never explain. A sentence that stayed in your memory for no obvious reason. Suddenly, they seemed connected. Stay till the end, because this is where the story becomes bigger than one strange night. You are beginning to see that the answer may not be hidden in one dramatic event. It may be hidden in everything that led to it. Sometimes life gives us small clues long before we understand what they mean. We notice them, forget them, and continue moving forward. Then one day, something happens that makes us remember all of them at once. That is what makes the moment feel so powerful. It is not necessarily because something supernatural happened. It is because your perspective changed. And when your perspective changes, the same memories can suddenly tell a completely different story. Don't skip. Something huge is waiting for you in the next realization, because there is one detail about last night that you may still be overlooking. You may think the most important thing was what happened, but perhaps the deeper message is why it affected you so strongly. Why did your heart react immediately? Why did your mind return to those old words? Why did you feel that strange combination of surprise, guilt, and recognition? There is a possibility that you have been carrying an unanswered question for much longer than you realized. Maybe you have been waiting for confirmation. Maybe you have been hoping that something would finally make sense. Maybe you simply wanted to know whether your instincts had been right all along. Last night gave you something close to an answer. And even if the answer was not what you expected, it may be exactly what you needed. Don't skip now. Stay till the end, because the next part reveals why this moment could become one of the most important turning points in your recent story. You have spent enough time looking at what went wrong. Now you need to look at what this realization makes possible. Because once you understand the truth, you cannot return to the same version of yourself who did not know it. Knowledge changes direction. Clarity changes decisions. And sometimes one unexpected night is enough to make you reconsider an entire chapter of your life. There is something else you need to understand before you decide what last night means. A powerful realization does not always arrive in the form of certainty. Sometimes it arrives as a question that refuses to disappear. You may still have doubts. You may still wonder whether the timing was coincidence. You may still wonder why those particular words return to your mind. That is okay. You do not have to force an answer immediately. But you should not ignore what the moment made you feel. Don't skip, because the biggest revelation is not about predicting the future. It is about recognizing the present. You have reached a point where you can no longer pretend that something does not matter simply because you are afraid of what acknowledging it might change. Last night may have exposed a truth about your own feelings. Perhaps you care more than you admitted. Perhaps you were more affected than you wanted anyone to know. Perhaps you have been waiting for a sign that would allow you to finally stop doubting yourself. And now that something has happened, your mind is trying to process it all at once. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, but it will make sense only if you listen without rushing. Now comes the part that may be hardest to accept. The words that came true may not have been a prediction at all. They may.